Imagine a company that had its own army, its own navy, its own courts, its own prisons, a company that minted its own currency, declared its own wars, and ruled over 90 million people. Not a government, not an empire, a corporation. And for over 200 years, it was the most powerful economic force on the planet. The year is 1600. Queen Elizabeth I signs a royal charter granting a group of London merchants exclusive rights to trade with the East Indies. 218 investors, one ship, a total capital of £72,000. They called it the East India Company. At the time, it was just another trading venture: spices, silk, cotton, the kind of commerce that had fueled European ambition for a century. But this company had something different in its founding documents: the right to acquire territory, the right to raise armies, the right to wage war, and make peace. Not as a nation, as a business, at its peak. The East India Company's private army was twice the size of the British Army: 260,000 soldiers, owned by shareholders. Here's how a trading company became an empire. It started with monopoly. The Royal Charter gave the company exclusive rights. No British competitor could legally trade in Asia. Then came the financial innovation. In 1657, the company introduced permanent joint stock ownership. Investors could buy and sell shares without waiting for a voyage to complete. This was one of the earliest versions of the modern stock market. With permanent capital, the company could plan decades ahead, build forts, bribe local rulers, slowly, systematically replace trade relationships with political control. By 1757, at the Battle of Plassey, company soldiers defeated the Nawab of Bengal, not for Britain, for the company's shareholders. And with Bengal came its treasury, its tax revenues, its trade routes. A corporation had just conquered a subcontinent. At its height, the East India Company controlled half of all world trade. Its revenue exceeded the GDP of most European nations. The company's financial model was elegant and brutal. It taxed the territories it controlled, used that tax revenue to buy local goods, sold those goods in Europe at massive profit, used those profits to fund more soldiers, more territory, more taxation. The people being taxed were paying for their own conquest. But the company's real innovation was political risk transfer. When things went wrong, famines, rebellions, wars, the company ran to the British government for bailouts and military support. When things went right, the profits went to private shareholders in London, privatized the gains, socialized the losses, a financial model that has never truly disappeared. And here's the question that financial historians still argue about. Was the East India Company a corporation that became a government, or a government that was always pretending to be a corporation? The East India Company was dissolved in 1874, absorbed by the British Crown after the Indian Rebellion of 1857. But the model it pioneered never died. Today, the world's largest corporations have revenues exceeding the GDP of most nations. They employ private security forces. They lobby governments. They write the legislation that regulates them. Apple's market cap has exceeded the GDP of all but 5 countries on Earth. The question the East India Company forces us to ask is not whether corporations have too much power. It is whether the line between corporate power and governmental power has ever truly existed. 218 investors, one charter, £72,000. 250 years later, They had conquered a subcontinent, controlled half the world's trade, and built the template for every multinational corporation that followed. The East India Company didn't just change history, it invented the architecture of modern corporate power. And we are still living inside that architecture today. Subscribe if this changed how you see the companies that shape your world, because the next episode goes even deeper into the financial structures built centuries ago that quietly run your life right now.